Good evening and welcome to Daily News Simplified. Before we begin our session, there is a little small announcement that we are going to conduct the third and last pre-parikshan for the year 2024 on 18th and 19th of May. So you are all welcome to join and test yourself before giving the final UPSC examination, this year's preliminary examination. So in today's Daily News Simplified, dated 15th of May 2024, we are going to discuss the following topics with respect to your civil services examination. From the mains point of view, we have taken two articles, the first being India-Iran relations and the second being land reforms, which we have taken as a summary. And because preliminary is nearing, we have taken four articles with respect to the preliminary examination this year. The first one being with respect to the Consumer Protection Act 2019. What is the context of this news? The context is that Justice Bela Trivedi in yesterday's judgment has said that services of advocates do not fall under the Consumer Protection Act 2019. Secondly, there was an article in the Hindu paper of today with respect to NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar, and inspired by the same article, we have taken one MCQ on this. And next, there have been news with respect to Aditya Mission and solar flares and Indian Volatility Index. We have framed two MCQs for you with respect to these topics as well. So without further delay, let us begin our today's session. The first article that we are going to deal with is with respect to India-Iran relations. What is the context of this news? We have already discussed the context of this news because it is an ongoing issue, and in yesterday's DNS as well, Pooja ma'am had discussed one MCQ based on the India-Iran relations. But we are going to today take it in a more comprehensive way with respect to your mains examination. Now, what is the context? The context is that India and Iran have signed a 10-year pact on the development of Chabahar port. What is the significance of this news? That this step that we have signed a 10 years agreement shows a kind of stability and maturity in the relationship, right? So what was the problem with inherent problem with respect to this project? That the sentiments of private investors were not enthused with confidence because of the inherent problems in the project. But now, as we have signed a long-term agreement, it is about to enthuse confidence in the private investors as well. Now, what is the syllabus mapping of this news? Syllabus mapping is with respect to your GS paper 2, India and its neighborhood. And in the past, although there has been no explicit question on the Iran, but US-Iran nuclear pact controversy has been covered in 2018 paper, and they have asked a question on the same. Now let us understand what the first question for a reader that should arise in his mind is that what is the importance of Iran in general and specific importance of Iran for India. So many of the viewers are joining us for the first time also. So let me just go back in time and say that Iran, just like India, is a civilizational state. Right. What is the meaning of civilizational state? So concept of nation state evolved after the Treaty of Westphalia, right? And modern day nation states have developed around and after the Treaty of Westphalia, and the concept of nation state came. But scholars have over the period in the recent times have developed interest and have called various states, certain states, as civilizational states as well. For example, India, for example, China, for example, Iran. What is the meaning of civilizational state? A state which has existed as a part of civilization even before the development of concept of nation state in the Europe, right? So Iran is one of the civilizational state. As you know that Mesopotamian civilization, Iran, modern day Iran is the outcome of Mesopotamian civilization. Next, it acts as a connector of two important oceans or seas of the world. First one being Indian Ocean or Gulf, and the second one being Caspian Sea. Third importance is with respect to its geography, that it connects the Asia, South Asia with Central Asia and West Asia. And the next one is with respect to its technology prowess. It is perhaps one of the only country in the Islamic world which has got its own very dignified space program, its own nuclear program, and other technological developments. And how do these developments take place? As I have already told, that it is not, Iran is not a state to be discounted with, right? It is a civilizational state, and because of being a civilizational state, the people of Iran have a kind of sense of maturity, sense of their own knowledge, sense of a repository of over the period which they have developed, right? So that is what is the importance of Iran for us. Now, why is Iran important, specifically important for India? The importance of Iran for India is can be framed in a manner that first one being location. The first importance of Iran lies in the context of its location, because it acts for India, it acts as a route to the Central Asia and Eastern Europe. The next one being energy security. Iran is one of the largest sources of petroleum and natural gas for India, and it has been a large source of petroleum and natural gas for India. And third one being Iran and Pakistan relations. So over the period, sometimes Iran and Pakistan relations have been cordial, and sometimes there have been differences with respect to Iran and Pakistan relations. So as per Mandala theory of Kautilya, your enemy, the friend of your enemy is you becomes the enemy of your friend becomes your friend as well. So similarly, applying the Kautilya's theory for today, Iran becomes a natural ally for India, because Iran also have border dispute with regards to Balochistan with Pakistan. Now let us discuss what are the impending issues, ongoing issues with respect to India-Iran relations. So India and Iran have always enjoyed a wealthy and prosperous trade since the time of Indus Valley civilization, and over the period in modern times, India and Iran have enjoyed trade in oil, right? But after the sanctions put forward by USA, especially CAATSA sanctions and IFCS sanctions, right? So after the implementation of these sanctions, the supply of oil from Iran has been put to a lot of restrictions. Now, what is this IFCS sanction? This IFCS sanction is a special sanction that was put in recently, that is with respect to Iran Freedom and Counter Proliferation Act, which says that transaction or business can with Iran, or monetary transaction with Iran, can be done only in two circumstances. First one being to aid the people of Afghanistan, and second one is with respect to humanitarian aid for Iranian people. So these are the only exceptions, except for which we will have to limit our transactions with Iran. Next is India's growing closeness with Israel, and as the Prime Minister of Iran President of Iran has already said time after time that these two are sworn enemies. So obviously Iran is not liking the relationship that is budding between between India and Israel. Next, the issue is with respect to India being kept out of ongoing developmental projects that are being carried out with respect to research and development of newer oil fields. The next point of conflict between Iran and India is with respect to the support of Iran to Houthi rebels. Now, what are these Houthi rebels? They are the rebels who are creating a kind of problem in the sea lines of communication of India, and have been a point of concern that has been raised by India repeatedly. Then, after the abrogation of Article 370, Iran expressed its displeasure. They said that Jammu and Kashmir was one of the only Muslim majority states in India, and it expressed expressed its displeasure over the abrogation of Article 370. And the most important aspect with respect to schism between India and Iran is with respect to emergence of China as the new player. China has deep pockets and deeper intentions with respect to the region, right? So we are not able to catch up with the deeper pockets of China when it comes to Belt and Road Initiative, in which they have committed to invest close to $400 billion to Iran within a span of 10 years. Then there are emerging developments that they are trying to link Gwadar port. Now you tell me, where is Gwadar port located? Right. So Gwadar port is located in Pakistan, which is being developed as a part of China-Pakistan economic corridor, and they have tried to link Gwadar with Chabahar port. That is the intention basically of China. And from the standpoint of Iran, they have offered Bandar Abbas port to China. Now, again, these are the pending issues with respect to India and Iran relationship. Now, what is going to be the way forward? Right. So, first point when it comes to the way forward is with respect to tracking fast tracking of diplomatic talks. Now, what is the problem with respect to India-Iran relationship is that it goes to the back burner very frequently. As soon as the geopolitical and geoeconomic climate of the region changes, we put our relationship with Iran on a back burner at the very instance. So what is the need? There needs to be consistency in the relationship. Then Iran is further developing various rail projects on its own. They are going to require various logistic support from India. So India should offer its expertise as well as logistical support in the development of railways of China. Then next point to deepen the relationship would be the investment of India's small and medium enterprises in the Chabahar economic free zone. So Chabahar is not only being developed as a port, it is going to be comprehensively developed as a economic free zone. So when India's small and medium enterprises invest, right? So when they invest for the long term, the relationships deepen. This recently concluded 10 years deal will definitely go in a positive way to boost investors' confidence when it comes to the relationship between Iran and India. So what was the pending issue here? That relationship is kind of on and off. All of a sudden we become very warm, and then all of a sudden the relationship is put on a back burner under the external pressure, right? So when you commit to someone for a long term, say 10 years, so this builds a kind of investor confidence, and when investor confidence is built, they are ready to invest in the country, right? And next is there is a need of strong political will. There is going to be pressure. India will sustain pressure when it enjoys the relationship with Iran. The pressure will come from definitely Israel's side, USA's side, so on and forth, right? But there is a need of a strong political will on both ends so that the relationship might prosper. And another area of cooperation, apart from the existing areas of cooperation like International North-South Economic Corridor, is Trans-Caspian Corridor. So India is already a participant in INSTC, and this INSTC can join the Trans-Caspian Corridor over here, right over here at this point, and we will get access to Eastern European nations as well. So there is a win-win relationship when it comes to India-Iran ties, and we should not destroy or put this relationship on the back burner just because of external pressures, right? The next article that we have taken is in the context of land reforms. Now, what is the context of this news? That the Andhra Pradesh government has recently introduced a land titling act. So this land titling act was based on the recommendations of Niti Aayog, which it gave in 2020, and in which it offered a model land titling act, right? So what is the syllabus mapping of this news? The syllabus mapping can be traced from two aspects. In your GS paper 2, you can see this land titling as a part of governance reforms, right? And from GS paper 3 point of view, you can see it as a comprehensive aspect of land reforms in India. So what we are going to do is that we are going to see it not from the economics point of view, we are going to see it from the governance point of view. However, in the past, there have been direct questions from this aspect. The question in 2023 was state the objective and measures of land reforms in India. Discuss how land ceiling policy in land holding can be considered as an effective reform under the economic criteria. Right. So before we go ahead with this topic, we need to understand a few key terms. So the first term that comes in mind is that what is land titling? So land titling is nothing but a term used to describe the programs implemented by the government which facilitate the trade in rights in land and property, right? So basically what is it? Then when you want to trade your land for money or for some other consideration, you need to transfer the title to someone else. But what is the problem in the present system? The present system in India is with respect to is known as presumptive land titling. So suppose you want to sell a land to someone else, right? You will go to the registrar's office and you will sign the sale deed and you will do a registry, right? So whoever carries the registry is assumed to be the owner of the land. But the problem is that this registration paper or registry is only considered as a sale deed, but it is not considered as a guarantee to the title by the government. By implementation of this particular act, we will move from presumptive land titling regime to conclusive land titling regime in India. So what is the feature of conclusive land titling? What is the feature of conclusive land titling? The first feature is that government provides guaranteed titles. And the second is that individual settles the case with government. It is as if you are purchasing and selling to the land only to the government. As of now, what happens is that, let us say Suresh and Mahesh. Suresh has got the property and Suresh wants to sell the property to Mahesh, right? So what will Suresh do? Suresh will call Mahesh to the registrar's office and transfer the registry to the name of Mahesh. But when this is called as presumptive land titling system. But when we move towards conclusive land titling system, Suresh will transfer the land to government and then in turn government will transfer the land to Mahesh. So government will come in between almost all the transactions. So first is that titles are guaranteed by the government, and the second feature is that individual settles the case with the government. In case there is a dispute, right? For example, Suresh has got a brother as well. Suresh has got a brother, his name is Vivek, right? So what will happen if Suresh sells the land unanimously to Mahesh and then there is a dispute, right? So government will also again become a party, because unless this land is sold to the government first and then from government's part it is sold to Mahesh, this sale will not be considered as a valid deed. Now, what are going to be the benefits of conclusive land titling? The first one is going to be reduced litigation. Why is it so? Because most of the cases in which land will be sold, it will be authenticated first that yes, the land is genuinely in the name of the seller and the buyer is also a genuine person, right? So it is definitely going to reduce the litigation. Then there are fair chances of reduced risk and reduced black marketing. As of now, property is one of the safe havens for the parking of black money. So after implementation of this particular land titling act, what will happen? Since the government comes in between all the transactions, right? So what will happen? It will reduce the black marketing of land, hoarding of the land, so on and forth. And then it will also facilitate easier credits for the farmers, for the weaker sections of the society, that they can lend their land to the government, and in turn they can gain the they can go for easier credits. Now, what are the features of this bill? What are the features? In this particular bill, the power is given to the state government to determine the extent and scope of the particular transactions. Then this particular act establishes certain land authorities. However, at the same time, it cuts through the layers of bureaucracies involved in the revenue department. By doing so, it becomes easier for the seller as well as buyer, right? The process becomes speedier because the layers of the bureaucracy in between the departments have been cut. Then also, for as they also predict that it is going to perhaps increase the litigation, so they have created a land titling appellate tribunal at the level of High Court for the disputes arising out of this land titling act. And then the most impressive feature of this act is that it provides for the compensation in case of various disputes arising out of land titles, right? But at the same time, there are going to be challenges as well. What are going to be the challenges? The challenges will definitely emanate from the issues that we have, features we have discussed. So what is the first challenge in this context? That the records have not been updated. You go to the village level, you go to the taluka level, the records are again at most of the times kept in an informal manner, and they have not been digitized as well. Similarly, in many societies and many communities, people do not have proof of inheritance. So what might happen that, yes, perhaps someone's grandfather used to own a land. Over the period, the land passed to the son, then over the period it passed to the son-in-law, but they didn't try to transfer it in their own name, right? So they do not have the proof of inheritance. As people, especially poor people and marginalized people, they do not have the proof of inheritance, and then this will create a problem in creating a conclusive proof in case of land title transfer. Then the next aspect is with respect to lack of resources with the local government to conduct en masse surveys, purchase various kind of digital technologies to digitize the data as well. Then again, there are legal issues. The first one is with respect to Transfer of Property Act. It is going to come in conflict with the Transfer of Property Act, which is a central legislation. Similarly, another feature of the act is that whatever disputes are already there with respect to property between various litigants, the titling act is not going to interfere in the pending cases. So the pending cases will still continue, right? And at the same time, this particular act, another feature is that this particular act will involve state as a party again. So when state becomes a party, state also becomes a part of litigation. So state's machinery, which is already overburdened, will become further overburdened by the involvement of a state in this particular act. And then the information related to land, as land is purely a state subject. So the information related to land is spread over various departments. There is the involvement of various departments in the consolidation of information with respect to land. So what is going to be the problem here? The problem is going to be that there will be issues and challenges while formalizing the information, right? Because it is spread over various departments, and they perhaps may not try to cooperate with each other. What is going to be the way forward when we see this particular act? So whatever is done right? We are not saying that this act is not ideal. Obviously Niti Aayog took various consultation with various bodies, various states, and they created a kind of model law. So it is definitely a progressive law. We are not saying that this is a regressive law altogether, but while doing so, while implementing so, certain caveats must be kept in mind. The first one being that whatever surveys that are conducted, those should be conducted keeping in mind the community as well. The government should not carry out the surveys on its own along with technology, right? They should consult the local communities as well while conducting the surveys. There needs to be the government needs to do what the government state governments need to do. They need to develop an integrated system of repository of land records for rural and urban areas. And lastly, because this land records are staggered and distributed to various departments as well, so there needs to be institutional changes in the maintenance of land records as well, right? So basically this all this boils down to revenue officers training programs, right? So this is going to be the way forward with respect to this model law. So before moving forward, let us take a 1 minute break. So now let us move on to the prelims section for today. The first article that we have taken is from the news, that is with respect to Consumer Protection Act. The news was given on page number 6 of Indian Express paper of today. What is the context? The Supreme Court, Justice Bela Trivedi, has recently ruled that services rendered by the advocates do not fall under the ambit of Consumer Protection Act of 2019. So this particular news is not important for you per se. What is involved, what becomes a part of CPA, what doesn't become a part of CPA, but obviously CPA, Consumer Protection Act, becomes important for civil services examination aspirants. Now, what was the reasoning given by the court in this context? The reasoning was that services rendered by the advocate would come under the contract of personal service as opposed to contract for service, right? So the contract of service is conducted with a company, right? However, a contract of personal service is conducted either to a third party or an individual. So Supreme Court reasoned that since the contract for a legal counsel is a contract of a personal service, it is not going to be covered under the ambit of Consumer Protection Act. Now let us see what are the key features with respect to Consumer Protection Act of 2019. So it is an improvement of over the Consumer Protection Act of 1986, if I remember correctly, right? So what are the salient features of this act? The first one is that it is for the first time this act incorporates e-commerce and direct selling establishments of under the Central Consumer Protection Authority. So erstwhile e-commerce websites were not taken under the ambit of Consumer Protection Act. So whatever products you must have purchased with, for example, let us say Myntra or Amazon, so on and forth, they wouldn't have been covered in the erstwhile regime. But after the enactment of this act, even e-commerce sales by the e-commerce have been taken up as a part of Consumer Protection Act. Second feature is that it imposes strict norms for misleading advertisements, right? And not just strict norms, it also imposes strict penalties as well. Then there are strict norms with respect to the product liability. What is the meaning of product liability? Suppose I purchased certain let us say thermos bottle from certain company, and they have provided me with a guarantee that yes, this will keep your water cool or warm for a period of, let us say, 18 hours, right? and it will work well for 1 year. But if that particular product fails to meet my demands, right, or whatever they had guaranteed, in that case they are liable to pay damages as well to me, right? So this also imposes strict norms with respect to product liability. The next is with respect to change in the pecuniary jurisdiction. What is the meaning of pecuniary jurisdiction? That the meaning of pecuniary jurisdiction is that whatever fines are imposed, they have been enhanced over the various categories. Again, it also introduces one of the key terms, that is with respect to unfair trade practices. What is the meaning of unfair trade practices? That various companies involved in unethical or unfair trade, right? And then this also introduces mediation, the scope of mediation between the service provider as well as the consumer of service. And lastly, it creates a central consumer protection authority which is responsible for the implementation of this particular act and resolution of disputes which are going to arise from the implementation of this Consumer Protection Act of 2019. Now, this act also acknowledges 6 rights of consumers. The rights are right to safety, right to be informed, right to choose the product of their own choice, right to be heard, right to seek redressal, and right to consumer awareness. So basically, jago grahak jago, right? Based on the information that we have just provided, let us try to solve the MCQ. In the past, there has been question with respect to various act. This is not in the context of this Consumer Protection Act, but in general there have been questions with respect to various acts, right? So based on the same theme, we have framed a question on Consumer Protection Act. Let us try to solve this thing. In context of Consumer Protection Act 2019, consider the following statements. The first is that the act covers e-commerce websites within its ambit. Yes, this is correct. This particular act brings a change and covers e-commerce websites, right? That is a departure from the earlier practice. The second is that this act provisions for alternate dispute resolution mechanism. Yes, this is also correct. And it establishes Central Consumer Protection Authority. All the 3 statements being correct, the right answer is C. Moving on to the next news, that is with respect to NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar mission. This news appeared on page number 5 of the Hindu newspaper. What is the context of this news? That this particular satellite, NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar mission, was supposed to be launched in the coming month. However, its launch has been deferred to later half of 2024, that is in the month of October or November. Now let us understand this article. This particular synthetic aperture radar has been covered in the past as well. So basically, generally radars are land based. What do radars do? Suppose this is a radar on land and this is a plane which is flying, right? What will this radar do? This radar will emit some frequencies, and when this frequency return and hit the radar, it will create a kind of aperture, it will create a kind of image with respect to the flying object. Now the uniqueness of this project is that we are directly asked, while radars used to be placed only on the earth surface, it is for the first time that we have fitted a radar of this much long aperture on the satellite, and we are planning to send this particular satellite to space. Now what are the key features to be kept in mind for the prelims standpoint is that this particular satellite will be placed in the lower earth orbit with at the altitude of 747 kilometers. It is a joint venture between NASA, the space agency of USA, and ISRO, the space agency of India. It has various features. For example, it has the capability of penetrating the cloud cover, and it can operate both in day and night. Now, another unique feature with respect to this radar is that it is one of the going to be the first satellite with dual band technology. The first one is L band. So this particular L band is the band which allows for the penetration even through the soil. So it is in this context this news was placed that monitor NISAR satellite can monitor tectonic movements accurately, right? So if the satellite can penetrate its if the satellite signals can penetrate through the soil, then only it will be able to monitor the tectonic activities. And then next one is that it produces higher resolution monitoring changes in urban areas. So it is going to be helpful in the management of urban planning as well as sustainable development. For example, receding glaciers can be studied, coastal plains and coastal erosion can be studied, various river erosion can be studied, what are the changing courses of river can those can also be studied, right? What is the significance with respect to the launch of the satellite? It is going to study the earth's dynamic land. So earth has again got a static part which is not changing so frequently, and it has got a dynamic part which is changing frequently. For example, ice caps, receding glaciers, so on and forth. These parts of the earth which are going to change very frequently, they can also be studied. Then it can also measure ground water levels, as it can penetrate even the soil, so it becomes readily available for the study of groundwater level also. And then it can also monitor continental movement, it can also spot warning signs, and in case of natural disasters as well, right? Based on the information, let us try to solve the MCQ. Consider the following statement with reference to NISAR satellite. Remember the name, NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar. First, NISAR is an Earth observation satellite to be placed in low Earth orbit. Yes, this is a correct statement. The satellite is indigenously developed by Indian Space Research Organization. No, it is a joint venture, as we just studied, between India and USA. Third is that synthetic aperture radar satellite uses two different radar frequencies. Yes, it uses two different radar frequencies, that is L band and S band. How many of the statements are correct? The answer is B, that is 2 only. The third news again is inspired by a very unique phenomena that is called as aurora borealis. This news was covered on the Hindu Science page of today. And what was the context of this news? The context was that people in Hanle Observatory, you go search and tell me in the comment section where is Hanle Observatory located, right? They have for the first time observed the phenomena of aurora borealis, right? Now let us understand what is the concept. So basically these lights in the sky at the night time, these are called as auroras. So what are auroras? Aurora is a natural light display in the sky which is predominantly seen at the high altitudes, right? Sorry, high latitude. So high latitude means either on the northern pole or southern pole, right? For the north pole it is called as aurora borealis, and for the south pole it is called as aurora australis, right? Inspired by the Australian continent. So since these lights are seen only in the polar part, how come we as Indians were able to see it, right? So this is the pertinent question which has raised the interest of various scientists, right? Now let us understand what is the reason behind formation of auroras. So what does sun do? Sun emits three things. First one being light, heat, and charged particle. Sun emits all the three things. However, since Earth is covered by its magnetic field, which in turn is produced by its rotation, right? So most of the charged particles are repelled away by the magnetic field of the earth. However, when solar flares are very strong, some particles inadvertently come into the atmosphere of the earth. Now, as you know, as you must have studied about the magnet, basic magnet, how it aligns from north to south. Similarly, these charged particles are repelled from entering, because here the field is very strong, and at the same time here the field is a little bit weaker. So they enter in the earth atmosphere from the either the north pole or the south pole. So this is the reason behind the formation of auroras and why they are formed only at the polar part, that is aurora borealis at the northern pole and aurora australis at the southern pole. And why do they produce various kinds of light? So when these charged particles interact with various gases, for example, when they interact with gases like oxygen, they produce a reddish light, and when they interact with nitrogen, they produce a kind of bluish or violetish light, right? So this is how you see the dance of lights in the northern and southern part of the earth. But in this case, because these solar flares were very strong, right, so that was the reason that the this event could be seen even from the naked eye at Ladakh's Hanle uh, laboratory, right? So based on the same information, let us try to solve the question. In past, there have been direct questions on the concept of solar flares, how they are created, so on and forth. Let us try to solve one practice MCQ based on the same concept. Consider the following statements regarding the auroras. Earth's rotation around its axis produces auroras. Yes, this statement is correct. Why? This is a derivative statement. Because of Earth's rotation around its axis, the magnetic field is created, and because of the creation of magnetic field, the auroras are created at the northern and southern pole. Second, charged particles react with atmospheric gases to produce different colors of light. Yes, as we have already discussed, when the charged particles interact with gases like oxygen, nitrogen, right, so on and forth, they produce different kind of lights. And the third statement is that auroras are visible only on Earth. Okay, so you tell me logically, should this statement be correct? We have not studied it, but you tell me, is this statement correct? So it should be wrong, because it is not just the Earth which has got gaseous atmosphere. There are other planets. For example, you can say Jupiter has got a gaseous atmosphere. So it cannot be just the Earth on which the phenomena of aurora is created, right? There are other planets as well where the phenomena of aurora is seen. So based on our understanding, what two statements are correct? So the answer is 2 only. Next, the last article for the day is with respect to India Volatility Index. This particular news appeared on Indian Express page number 13. So this particular index is not of much significance to you. That is why we have taken it as a part of refresher for you. Now, what is the context? That India's volatility index has rallied, and what does it means for investors? Now, before understanding this, let us understand what is the concept of volatility index, or it is also popularly called as peer index. So before various kind of sensitive events, for example, there can be events like elections, there can be events like great financial boom or bust, so on and forth, right? Market becomes volatile, and taking advantage of this volatility, an index is created which determines how much or to what extent the market is volatile. So what is it? It is a measure of the market's expectation of volatility over the near term, right? Also, another thing that is to be kept in mind is that this is the near term volatility, not the long term volatility. So as of now, you tell me what is the reason for which this volatility must be happening in Indian market. Obviously the answer is that because of the ongoing elections, there is volatility in Indian market. And as soon as the volatility subsides, as soon as the election will be over, this volatility will be over, because there will be certainty in the investment climate of India, right? And then this volatility index will decline. So this index is plotted directly proportional. The more the volatility, the more it is, the higher it is plotted, and the lesser the volatility, it will further subside. What is it used for? It is used by the investors to invest or not to invest in various markets. And another significance is that in the period of this market volatility, what will happen? The market will move steeply. Either it will go very high all of a sudden, it will come very low also all of a sudden. So this is the prime reason for which this news becomes important for us. Now, again, a factual information that is relevant for you is that it is computed by National Stock Exchange of India. Based on the same information, let us try to solve the MCQ. With reference to financial markets, consider the following statements in India, right? In the past, there has been a question on the financial market as well. The volatility index or fear index, is, as it is known, is a measure of market's expectation of volatility over the near term. Okay, yes, this statement is correct. It is a measure of market's volatility over the near term or short term. So why is it happening as of now? Because of the ongoing elections, right? During periods of market volatility, the market moves steeply either up, or it can go steeply down as well, based on the investors' sentiments and investors' confidence in who is going to form the government. So how many of the statements given above are correct? Both are correct. So with this, we conclude our session for today. Please like our video, share this video with the newcomers who have just started preparing for civil services examination, right? And with this, I'll take your leave, and until we meet next time. Thank you.